Hello, hello, and welcome to Into the MoTaverse. Today we have Judy Mosley with us. She's a quality engineer. She's a member of the MoTaverse. She's an ambassador. And yeah, it's good to have Judy with us. Hello, Judy. Welcome.
Hey Rosie, I am so glad to be here and so excited to be a member of all of those things. So glad to be a part of the Motiverse.
Awesome. I mean, it's good for me. It's good to be here. You've been around the MoTaverse for a while. You've been participating for a while as well. Jumping on Twix, sharing content in the Slack and all those things. Um, but I think this is the first time we've chatted virtually, face to face, one to one, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think we've messaged each other a few times, but I think other than an ambassador meeting we had the other day, I don't think I've
Yeah,
actually seen you and talked to you.
yeah.
So this is great.
It's cool because I mean I think for me, like from a community perspective, these things are interesting because it almost brings a different layer of conversations or a different layer of getting to know each other. Um, and yeah, I guess I've been thinking about that a lot more as we've been building the Motoverse, and we've been doing things like Core for Insights recently. Simon Tomes has been mostly doing that. And just these one to one conversations is something that I'm really keen on doing more of. And this is one of them, I guess. And yeah, last year we were doing some leading with quality conversations. Um, yeah, and I think it's more of it because yeah, it builds up not only the knowledge in the community, but it helps us build connection and it helps you build your credibility as well as a quality engineer.
Mhm.
But yeah, for the purpose of the podcast listeners, would you like to introduce yourself or tell us a bit about yourself or your journey into quality?
Yes. So I have been in tech for 10 years. My background is that I was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years. And I had no tech background. I'd done some college but never finished to be a special education teacher. And that life happened and that didn't pan out. I got married at a younger age and had kid like just jumped into life responsibility laundry like that was my role for a really long time. Um, and then but I've always written. Like I have my journals from when I was 11, and I started online blogging. I hope that I've deleted those. I started writing online years ago, just thoughts and perspectives and motherhood and all that stuff. And I think it was through WordPress. I started playing with the headers. Like they gave, WordPress gives you access to be able to change the title, and I didn't know what an H tag was, but I figured out that if I changed a 3 to a 2 or a 2 to a 1, it 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 transformed things. And so I was doing a little bit there, but it really wasn't until 2015 when I had wanted to join the workforce again, did not know where to start. I was thinking about tech, but didn't know how to, like, what a good entry point was. I didn't know if I should go to college. And then President Obama came to Louisville, Kentucky to talk about a coding boot camp called Code U. At the time, it was called Code Louisville, but it's called Code U now. And I was on my way to work at the time, uh, at a private school. I was a recess monitor at a private school
Wow.
and making $10 an hour.
Wow.
and and I don't know, it's one of those times where your your gut kicks in
Yeah.
and says, pay attention, you need this. And I looked into the program, got into the program, did 2 boot camps through that, and then in 2017, was it 2017? No, it was 2016. I got my first QA job, and I started in QA because people told me that's how you get your foot in the door, but you don't want to stay. Like, you want to become a developer because it's like that's where it matters, kind of thing. Um, but I found out really quickly that I'm really good at breaking stuff and asking questions and yeah, going down paths that people may not have considered, and that in itself is a valuable skill. And so I've basically have just been learning to expound on that throughout the
Amazing.
years.
I didn't realize the boot camp journey that you had. Was that a
Mhm.
boot camp that you had to pay for and then they guaranteed you a job, or what was that like?
Yeah, it was. It's so sad because this past year I learned that they're shutting the program down. Um, but it was a free program to the
Yeah.
community, and it was 12 weeks. Of course, you had to participate. You had to do, by the end, you had a working project that you could show employers. They did a showcase night where it's kind of like the school dance where it's like the girls are on one side and the guys are on the other. It was the employers on one side, and all of us be like, like, how do we talk to these people? Um, but they helped us do our resumes. They had resume workshops, and that was the first time that I had seen different people in tech. Like, the students themselves, it wasn't just a particular kind of person. It was all kinds of people. And I think, part of the free part was because of that, but it was just like it wasn't I didn't feel alone in my difference, if that makes sense. Um and so there was that aspect of it, and then um there was the diversity within the students themselves. And then I saw women leading, like really leading. One person in particular is Becky Steele, who she's off out in the world doing amazing things, but the way she carried herself, the way she talked, there wasn't any fluff about her. Like, she wore jeans and a t-shirt and she got stuff done, and I'm a jeans and t-shirt person. And I'd kind of been raised to believe that if you're going to go anywhere in life, you have to present yourself in this very important fashion. And she was just getting stuff done and living her life and changing people's lives. And yeah, I just thought, yeah, I would love to do that. I'd love to become that.
It's interesting how you said like I saw a woman leading, or you saw a woman leading, and how that can feel so impactful.
Hmm.
Why do you think that stood out so much? I mean, was it partly you didn't expect that in tech, or was it that you hadn't seen women leading in from your own experiences?
Yeah, I think because I grew up around tech, but I didn't pay attention to the industry at all. But if you had asked me who are the leaders in tech, I would have said, Bill Gates. Like the obvious answers, even if you
Mm.
don't pay attention, just because of exposure. And also the leaders, the women leaders that I had seen growing up, they did have that, they wore professional pantsuits and dresses and they didn't, I guess I saw them out there, but I didn't see them creating things, if that makes sense. They were just part of a system versus building their own world. And creating real change. I think it's easy to talk about change, but actually having change that you can show somebody is completely different. Um, so I think that's what made an impact on me.
Yeah, it's interesting the jeans and t-shirt angle because I'm totally that kind of person. It's like I love my t-shirts, especially black ones.
Mhm.
Um, it's just what I'm used to, but occasionally I wear different t-shirts, specifically MOT ones
Mhm.
that have um, MoTaverse kind of stuff, branding or bug. I'm quite happy to wear those, but I am picky about like those kind of things. Like I literally cannot wear other things. It feels so uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And there's probably lots of reasons for that, but when you're surrounded by a world where the people that lead look a certain way, dress a certain way, and you feel like you have to be like that to lead.
Mhm.
It's like as you were talking about that, I was literally like, yeah. I mean, I never thought I could lead if I wanted to be this quirky, casual person in the background, just focused on what I'm doing and wearing jeans and t-shirts, or
Mhm.
having Space Duck or Rosie Land or all these things. It's like I'm okay with it now, but definitely a few
Mhm.
years back, even 5 years back, I would have still been a bit, you know, doubting myself, thinking, no, can I lead, or am I the right person to lead?
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, it's just interesting. And yeah, I don't know. It's just like I'm definitely like want to advocate for women in tech, but it's hard. I've definitely had my own journey,
Mhm.
and trying to do better, trying to not care as much what people think, or but also just trying to create that change. And I like what you said about the part of the system rather than being a creator. And I think more of us, not just women, obviously, but just more more diversity in who gets to create and who gets a say in things, who
Mhm.
gets to world build as well, to create a world that we all feel more comfortable in.
Mhm.
But yeah, how would I know? Like we had a topic for this podcast, so we've kind of like slightly gone off topic. But maybe we can, maybe it's related. Maybe we'll figure out a way to connect it to like our or your original idea of what to focus on. Um, and that topic was a lone tester in an organization. Perhaps something we don't talk about enough, or I also think maybe a lone tester is changing a lot in our perception, or what I see changing in the quality industry at the moment.
Mhm.
um, I definitely think back to how testing was done years ago, and even though there were less testers, quite often you would see multiple testers in a team, where the ratio would be somewhat higher. But now that we're kind of shifting to more quality engineering style setups or mindset or culture, seeing a lot more lone testers, or testers who are coaches or testers who roam about around the teams and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, so I guess partly there's the lone testers as individuals on a team, but then there's lone testers within the whole organization. I think that's where you fit into, right? It's
Hmm.
like you're the only quality person in the whole company.
Yeah.
Has it always been like that? Has that been in all your roles, or is it in this current roles?
It's been a mix. So I would say this role is the only one where I have started off as a lone tester and stayed as the only tester. In previous roles, I have been brought on to establish the kind of the quality environment, back to world building as we were talking about earlier, and kind of creating the environment, adopting the tools, getting QA set up as part of the CI/CD process, and then bringing on other QA teammates later. And then in previous, especially in my first few roles I had, I was part of a team. So it's been lots of different levels and experiences.
Yeah. What would you say? Let's say currently in your current role, what would you say is good about being a lone tester?
What's good, and it very much depends on the teammates you have, is when you say that something is wrong, they believe you. Like, you are the only QA. So if you speak up and say, this isn't working, or I found a bug, or I've noticed this thing in the build process, has anyone else experienced it? Um, the devs believe you and they act on it. And I do think in that mix, or even in the time that I've been here, this may be moving fast tracking our conversation, but it's like you have to build trust first, because I think one of the worst things that we can do as a QA is over alert, like, oh, I see this thing, or I had a practice for a while. I haven't used it in a bit, but I used to just say, this is just a red flag. No one has to run and check on it, but I'm noticing this strange behavior. I can't reproduce it, but if I can, I will come back and I will update this comment and I will have a ticket attached to it. Like, when I first started in QA, one of the skills that I needed to learn super quickly was communicating well. Like, you can't just say, this is broken. Like, you can't, like, if you pull down a PR and you start testing it, you can't just reply back to the developer and say, this is broken, and providing no context. And I was really bad. And of course, like, internet speak, I had learned about internet speak, and you can mix words up. So it's like Borkin. I had never heard of Borkin before. And so I'd reach out to developers and I'll be like, this is Borkin. And they're like, we don't like you at all. um, so yes, there's time for fun, and always communicate. Like, give give context. uh People already, I mean, the majority of the time people don't feel super great about you pointing out where things are going wrong, and so you have to provide as much context as possible. You have to provide direction. You have to provide solid steps to reproduce. You have to be really clear if you're going to make a good impact, especially as a lone tester. And that clarity, I think, brings trust, so that when you do speak, you're taken seriously.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting what you say because I mean like I often relate quality to community And there's so many similarities. And one of the things that I say, like in my community work, is like good community requires good communication. So these are almost lessons that are applicable to so many things. It's not just community. And I think it's interesting to think about that from the quality perspective. And like as you were talking there, I was like thinking like, what is good communication in a quality perspective? Not just as a lone tester, but also just as a changing world. How can we get better at communicating? And sometimes I look back at older content, for example, that we have on bug reporting. So we have a video or short course or something on bug reporting on MOT, and I keep meaning to revisit it because it's almost like bug reporting doesn't change, but actually it does change because the way we communicate changes, or our preferences change, or the way we used to speak about bug reporting was very like process driven, and maybe it lacked like the humanity side of things, or like things like, if you're a tester or a lone tester, it's like interrupting developers when they're in the middle of something is probably not something you want to do when you're reporting bugs or something like that. It's like if they're in the flow, or if they've got priorities, it's like if you can't expect them to just like drop everything to or maybe you can, but they might be grumpy, and understandably. But yeah, I guess it's these things that I'm starting to think about more, and partly it's like as a lone tester, but partly maybe it's combined with like the shift towards quality engineering, where it's more integrated, it's more teamwork, and I know you covered some things there, but have you noticed changes from that perspective? Like, almost thinking about like perhaps when you started out in quality, is like, what was your bug reporting mindset and process like then, and how does it compare to now? Like, what's different? What has potentially changed?
I think I have a few different thoughts going on at the same time, so I'll try to separate them out. But it depends on the environment. At my first role that I had, the first thing that they addressed was bug reporting, because how to say this respectfully, the team, some of the developers on the team did not read tickets thoroughly, so you had to provide steps to reproduce that were very detailed. And I mean, looking back now, it feels very much like I was over explaining, but that's how they requested it. So in one job, it was very step by step to the T on how to reach the bug that I discovered. And then I would say, like in the next role I went to, I tried carrying that same practice over, and they were like, we know what page you're on. I can tell by the title. Like, you don't have to tell me how to get to that page. Shrink down your steps to reproduce. So then it was like, oh, I don't have to over explain. I can give the basics. And so now I feel like whenever I do join an organization, I try to get to know the developers as fast as possible, so that way I know how to communicate. Do they need me to explain everything step by step, or can I just say, go to this page and follow these 3 steps? But one thing I do try to avoid is not giving enough information, and especially when there is an issue that I cannot reproduce consistently. I don't write bug tickets if I can't reproduce them consistently. If something is happening, but I don't have a solid way to get there, I'm only going to frustrate the developers. And they're going to be frustrated with me, and then we're all going to be frustrated because nothing is getting fixed. So, because that's the kind of tickets that support brings in from clients, right? Like the clients report it, and then support does their best to figure out what's going on, and then they pass it on to engineering. So I think there is a place for that, but if I'm not going to contribute something that will really light the way, then I'm not sure I'm helping. So yeah, I do not report flaky bugs or intermittent bugs. And I try not to, going back to reaching out to developers personally, one thing that we have made a change in our organization is that we have project specific channels. So when I find issues, I'm not bothering anybody, but I'm not alerting just one person. I'm alerting the whole team in the project channel. And then if the developers are focused, they can visit that channel at any time when they're ready. So
Yeah.
I only alert the team to something really bad, like the site is down. Yes, that's when you alert people and you say everything is terrible. There's absolutely reasons to do that. But if you operate all the time on everything is terrible, people are just going to get frustrated.
Yeah. Is that like a Slack channel, for example, per product?
Yeah.
What kind of things would you put in there, or do you ever think about like the mindset of just sometimes logging stuff just so it's logged somewhere, so that maybe you don't need that information now, but it's something that you've seen that you think is interesting, might not be, but it's good to mention it just in case, and then maybe you can go back and search on it and point back to it. Like, I guess like I often think about like the knowledge of products or the knowledge of how we share stuff, and I guess like in a past life that might have been like exploratory testing, but in a current life where, like 10 years ago, like Slack wasn't there, right? But now like everyone lives in Slack or Teams, or, can we use those tools more creatively just to log stuff without the expectation that you have to respond, but it's there, right? And we've definitely been doing that in from like a community sense. Like we share stuff on our Slack that we know that we can go back and search on a specific keyword should we ever need it. Say, oh, you remember that time when this person did this thing, or whatever it might be. But like you could do the same with product, right? It's like, log in observations. So I wonder, like, are there any like practices that you've developed? You mentioned, I think it was before we started recording, a very interesting process that you have. I was like, almost that's like, as a lone tester or even as a small organization, or I think probably every organization has a very interesting process, right? We do things our way and it works, and or you're evolving or experimenting with stuff. And perhaps one thing I remember you saying, I think it was on a Twik episode one time, where I think you said something like, in our team, when we do a pull request, I think it was, and the code is written in AI or with the help of AI, then you tag it in some form to say that you used AI to help you write something with code as just a piece of information that at some point it might be useful, that when someone else goes to review that, they might be, oh, we need to keep an eye out for AI related quality issues that might appear as a result. So yeah, I guess it's stuff like that I think about as it's like, what are the interesting processes that are outside the traditional kind of like bug reporting, as a lone tester, perhaps that you've adopted or created, innovated on, or is interesting?
Yeah, I will say one thing that Slack has released recently that I adapted and the teams are adapting is the list functionality. For a long time, I used pins. So if I had a question about a piece of functionality, like, should it be doing this? This is the behavior I'm seeing. Design, is this supposed to be happening? I use pins a lot. And a lot of times, silence is really good feedback because if no one is saying, oh, this is so helpful, maybe it is helpful, but it's not as helpful as you hope. And so recently, for one of our latest projects, I used the Slack list, and then I pinned it at the top of the project channel. And I said, okay, as I'm testing and as I ask questions, I'm going to attach any message to the list. And it's right here. Like, I took a screenshot and point to it, be very obvious. And once that question is answered, I will mark it as answered. And I asked the team, I said, do you want me to take those questions off the list afterward, or would you rather them stay? And they're like, oh no, like this is great. Like, having just one list where we can document conversations about different things that we've discussed, like, this is awesome. And so I've incorporated lists recently, and I mean, everyone was like, I mean, it was in retros, it was in, like, people personally have been like, I love the list, this is so helpful. And even the developers have started, like, in the project channel, adding their own list, and it's a dev change log. So it's like, okay, we made this decision, this is how we've pivoted, this is where that information lives. So I've been super happy about that. Like, when I do something that other people are not only excited about, but then they adopt themselves, then I know I've done something really useful. I have always used Slack pins for various things. But one thing that I do privately is, if anyone compliments me in, like, especially publicly in Slack, I will pin that for my, not pin it to the channel. That would be a little bit embarrassing. but I will link it back to my own space in Slack. And so if ever I'm having just an off day, actually I don't use pins for that now that I'm thinking about it, but if I'm having an off day, I can go to my little, personal channel, and I can just scroll through and be like, okay, this is what people have said, even with conversations with people who've left the company, and they've said things like, you have been our most impactful hire. Like, I need to remember that, because some days I don't feel like that. So that's another thing that I do just personally. And then as far as the PR request, that was a team decision. I definitely did not spearhead that. But one thing that we've been talking about very much is we're using AI. We don't have to be afraid of AI. How do we use it in a responsible way? How do we avoid silos? Because that is one unfortunate thing about AI, is if you're using it to code, you're not necessarily pair programming with another person. So how do we not lose out on pair programming? And then what kind of objectivity should we bring to a PR if AI is involved? So I can think of one developer where, if I was going through her PR, I'm not saying I would like just thumbs up and be like, yeah, you're good to go. But I'm like, this person does her work so well. I would just be like, I don't need to bring a magnifying glass to it, if that makes sense. You know, like they're strong, they're sensible, they know what they're doing. I could test it. It's good. But if AI has been involved, I still trust that person. But I can't vouch for AI. So I have to bring a different perspective to it. And that's not saying that I trust this person less. It means that there have been more tools brought in, and I need to assess both at different levels, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Is AI being used currently? I assume then. It sounds like it has your role changed as a result of that. Like, obviously, you just given one example of how you become more aware of issues or potential issues, or simply becoming aware that AI has been used to code something almost puts your mindset in a different frame of mind. Are there any other like obvious changes where it's changing your role, or you're doing things differently as a result of AI?
Yeah, I'm sure I can say this publicly. I am a slow adopter. The way that AI has programmed or it has been created, um, it has such a confidence. Like, I mean, I've seen posts on LinkedIn that say, how can we make it more believable? And I'm just like, why don't you make it more trustworthy? Like, if you made it trustworthy, you wouldn't have to make it believable. So I'm finding, I'm, I would say that in the last few weeks, I've been trying out low level risks of how to integrate AI. Like recently, I mean, there's a lot going on at work, and I was trying to think of just the most tedious things that take up my time, and bug reporting is one of them. And so I've started using AI to just say, like, create a bug report with the following title and include um, expected actual steps to reproduce videos and screenshots as sections. And it does it, which is really helpful because I mean, stuff like that just takes time. And I can read it, I can refine it. But at the same time, I also told the devs I have my own little QA channel, and I said, if the tickets sound less like me, it's because it is. Like, I want them to know.
Yeah.
I don't want them to read a ticket and be like, why is Judy being so wordy? um, but it's like, I'm not going to change everything it says, but at the same time, if it doesn't sound like me, this is why, and I want you to be aware of it. I'm using this to help
Yeah.
be a little bit more efficient.
It's
So
almost
that's
like
great.
the bug reports need that AI assisted tag as well, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I may do
Right.
that.
Yeah, it's interesting though, right? It's like how do we tag things like according to how we create them, and how that might inform our thinking at some point, or it could just sit there as a bit of data, a bit of knowledge that might assist the future.
Mhm.
I mean, I think with the AI world, it's like it feels like knowledge or documentation is going to be increasingly important, and I guess that comes in many forms. And so how do we document stuff? How do we help navigate the world where decisions are being made, and like how are we coming by those decisions, and how would that inform AI better potentially, or inform humans better to to know what to build. And yeah, it's just fascinating to think about, I guess, and it's almost overwhelming as well, thinking about it. But um, yeah, there's something in documentation, I guess, and documentation is everywhere. It's bug reports, it's code, it's unit tests, it's, it's just like plans, any kind of plans you might have to create. It's like, yeah, as AI becomes more important, it's like, how do these things impact the quality? And if AI ends up feeding off of them, that becomes our role, and then it becomes like, oh, good communication is good documentation.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts for the day, I suppose. What do you think is the hardest thing of being a lone tester?
It can just feel so lonely. Like, even though I have good teammates, I have good developers, no one is mad that I found a bug. In fact, I get feedback often about like, oh, we're so glad you found this thing. Like, um, yeah, so there's a lot of celebrating, but at the same time, there's not like if I have a bad day, QA related, who am I gonna tell? I mean, I can tell my boss, but it's like there's no we don't have a rant channel. I would love a rant channel, but it's just like, like and being challenged, like when you're on a QA team, you're not the only one learning about QA. Like I push my learning, but being able to feed off of each other, and I think that's what I find so valuable with Ministry of Testing is it's overwhelming sometimes, but it's like someone will have a thought and I'll have that thought and I'll make a memory or post about it, or taking a course, and then like whatever I create, like someone else bounces off of that, and it's just like it that energy feeds on itself. And on my team, I don't have that. So that's one aspect of it where it's like I'm not always challenged in a good way. Everyone's like, oh, you're doing a great job, which sounds like the dream, right? Like everyone's just thinks you're great and you're doing great and everything's great. But that doesn't mean growth. And so finding community outside of that, I feel like is important. And being the only advocate. Like sometimes it takes time and to earn your way to the table. I don't think that's a bad thing. If you're never invited to the table, that's a bad thing. But if you have established trust, if you've made your voice trustworthy, I remember for a while I was brought in really late on projects, and I would have no context. I wasn't invited to any of the meetings, and they would just literally just be like, okay, here's what we need tested. And I'm like, I know nothing about what we're looking at right now. I will get caught up. And the more that I found issues, well, it wasn't just finding issues, but it was like the more that I was able to prove my worth. I worked with one developer and it released and everything was just like clean, like no issues reported. And based on that, I was like, hey, can you invite me to the meetings at the beginning so that way I'm not so stressed out on the next testing round? And he was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And I never, I mean, I still, there are times when I have to ask to be invited to meetings, but the majority of the time I'm invited to meetings because we want things to be better. Like all of us, the whole team wants things to be better. And people know and understand that the earlier QA is invited onto the journey, the more we can figure out question, tweak, test, and then it's not so stressful towards the end.
You know, it's actually quite rude not being invited to meetings, and you know, and maybe we need to start using that language. It's like, that's pretty rude that you didn't invite me. You know, just being left out constantly. It's like,
Yeah.
if you think back to school days, it's like, it's rude to leave people out or not be inclusive, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, and obviously there's like history to projects and like how people perceive QA, but you know, I guess like I'm trying to get better at being somewhat blunt or just saying what's on my mind. And as you were saying that, I was like, actually, it's rude that we don't get included. How dare you? How dare you not include us? You know?
It is rude, but at the same time, like I talked to someone the last few weeks and they said, I'm not trying to leave you out of the meetings. I don't want to overwhelm you. And so they were actually trying to, because I mean, being the only QA, there are so many meetings, like there's a lot. And so I told them, I said, just invite me anyway. Like, I see what you're saying. Thank you for voicing that. Invite me anyway. If I can't make it, I'll just say I can't make it. And they're like, okay, you know.
Yeah.
So I think it's, as a lone tester, you have to express what you need all the time, and that can be hard too. Like, I mean, as a human, like, how often do you joyfully ask for help when you need help? You know, it's hard, but if you're gonna survive as a lone tester, you have to say, this isn't working for me, and this is why. How can we fix this? And you have to be really good at advocating for yourself, having boundaries, telling people when you're overwhelmed, telling people that you have needs, like, and just on a normal person day, like, that's hard.
Yeah. It almost feels like advocating for yourself is obviously hard and exhausting and under recognize perhaps of how exhausting it can be to always have to be like standing up for yourself or making requests. And I think it can be easy perhaps for other roles like developers to fully appreciate that if they haven't experienced it. If they're always invited to the room, then they're never going to really appreciate how our background as quality and testing people, lone or not lone. I think it's not just for lone testers that we continually have to push to be included, get a seat at the table, and that's almost related. There you go. We're coming full circle, bringing it back to the women in leadership roles and diversity and the lack of diverse roles. As anyone who's underrepresented probably feels the same. So they have to, work twice as hard to achieve the same thing as a white man, basically. And that's hard. That's a hard way to live, right? As much as we love what we do, it's probably important to recognize, even if it's just for ourselves, that we have to work harder to achieve the same, or get the same kind of visibility as other roles, or basically. And I think that's just interesting to reflect upon, and maybe things like community help us. I know they do. I know, like, the MoTaverse does. We can come and rant and come and share. But yeah, I think that's nice. We managed to come full circle. I found a way to connect it all in.
We did it.
Ooh, bug connects. But yeah, thank you, Judy. I think this is a great moment to kind of wrap up.
Okay.
Is there any final thoughts or any final things? One thing that you want to say before we wrap up?
Yeah, just that you bring value. I would say the hardest thing about QA, whether you're by yourself or other teams, is when things are good. Like I say crickets is great. Like if the support team isn't reporting anything but at the same time, if you don't have that celebration as a team culture, that can feel like your work is invisible. So if we can find ways to make the invisible visible, which is something I'm going to be focusing on this year, yeah, find ways to do that because your work matters, even though no one may celebrate it afterwards.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Judy. It's been a pleasure. And I'll see you in the MoTaverse.
All right. Bye.